I'm here at Avionté CONNECT 2026 in Minneapolis with Erich Hugunin, VP of Sales for North America at Ringover. Erich, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Hilary. Appreciate the time today.
Ringover sits at the intersection of communication technology and staffing, and you talk to recruiting leaders all the time across the country. So you kind of have the wide angle view of how staffing firms are actually reaching and engaging candidates right now. So very excited to dive in with you today. When a recruiter picks up the phone today, what actually gets somebody to stay on the line?
It's a great question. I think one of the main ways to get someone to stay in the line is make the conversation a two-way. Ask questions. So when you're trying to keep them on the line, it's just engage with them, ask questions all the time. Don't just sit there and try to talk to them about why they should work with you and spill out, oh, I'm calling with this company. Here's what's really important. Just ask them questions. So you're calling a candidate, if you're calling a prospect, the whole goal is to get them to talk, right? Why do they take that phone call? And so, hey, what are you available for? What are you looking for right now? Are you looking for any changes? Just that, engage with them and get them to tell you what they're looking for in the conversations they want and what they want to make changes and why they may want to do it. And so that gets them to engage, gets them to think about it, and then you're going to get more response out of it. The whole goal, right, is get the other person to talk more than you're talking. And that's the goal here with this as well.
What's a communication tactic that recruiters are using and clinging to that they should stop doing?
A big one we see is, they still make a lot of phone calls, which is a good thing, but it's how they do it. So probably one of the first habits we see that we try to break them from is they'll call someone 5 times, 10 times. They go, well, I need to get a hold of them, but they're not calling. They're not leaving a voicemail. They're literally just reaching out over and over again. And they're like, why am I getting flagged for spam? Well, you are spamming. If I had 10 calls from someone or even 5 calls from someone in 48 hours, 72 hours, I'm blocking them and reporting it as spam. And so one of the first habits we have to say is you got to change how you used to reach out. So if you're going to stick to phones, if that's one of your KPIs you require, change it, right? Call, leave a voicemail. The big and next step is change your outreach. It's not just calling, leaving a voicemail, calling, leaving a voicemail. It should be multi-threaded. Text message them. Hey, Hilary, I just left you a voicemail about this. Do you have time to chat? Because then what you're doing is you're creating a warm lead versus a cold lead, right? They're going to get the option to reply back to say, yeah, you know what? I am free. Can you call me at 4 p.m. instead of you calling them back at 3 and calling the next day at 7? You're disrupting them and you're spamming them. And so it's communicate on their terms rather than your terms. And that's really hard for people to do. And you got to back into that with data. A lot of people think, well, our best time to call are this to this. How do you know that? Is that just because that's what you've always done and force your team to do it? And so it's use your technology, look at when you're seeing your most connects, when you get the most responses, when you're getting the most missed calls, and coordinate your hours around that. And so that's part of what we talk about with data hygiene being so important, is the ability for someone to go back and look at that. Like, when does your team connect the most? You might have thought it was Wednesday at this time, and it's not. Like, I often see people make mistake, like, why are you making calls on Fridays? Okay, they're not going to answer. Okay, if a salesperson or recruiter's doing it on a Friday, they're simply doing that to get their numbers for the end of the day, end of the week, in their KPIs. And so they're literally making those calls to make their numbers. I had to do it, or they're doing their text message or whatever it is. It's not effective, So it's change that up. Look at the data, back into that, and make sure you're using the right times as well as the way outreach style that's most effective.
Where do you think that AI is actually making recruiters better at their job versus just adding more to that noisy, spammy outreach?
Something I heard the other day was data insurance. And what I mean by that, right? Because as a recruiting firm, your data, what you have, your candidates, the information you have on your clients, everything back into your ATS is everything. That's your business. That is what helps differentiate you from your competitors. It's your recruiters, but it's also your data. That's what's important to you. So using a tool that brings all of that back into your system is crucial, right? Because when they're going and using tools outside of Avionté that are not integrated or outside of your ATS, that's a big problem because you're not capturing that, as well as a huge risk for you, right? And that comes out of not just capturing your phone calls and your meetings and that stuff, but do you guys have an enterprise edition of Gemini or ChatGPT, or what are you using that ensures that your team's not taking your customer data, your client data, your candidate data, and it's leaving your organization? And it's a huge risk that people aren't spending enough time focusing on, because what's that opening up to for liability perspective? Massive class action lawsuits will come from this because people are doing that, and it's kind of the wild, wild west right now. So I'd say, like, better job is data insurance. And for you, that's more for your business, less for the recruiter, right? Yeah, I think obviously the data side is great for the business and good for the recruiter as a salesperson, right? I don't have a notebook anymore. We were just talking about this, right? Literally, I don't carry a notebook with me. So the ability to have all that back there, to show up to meetings prepared, So from a recruiter salesperson perspective, for me to show up and remember exactly what I talked about, everything, you're showing up in an intelligent way. And that's something for us as recruiters, salespeople, it's really important. The educated buyer, as they say, is coming to you right now. And the person who engages at that same level with that buyer, which may be a candidate, it could be someone you're selling to, it's because you show up with the right pertinent information. So that's where AI can really help that. It can help plan what you're doing. And then it goes into the next piece, which is time savings, right? Like before, you had to go look up that candidate, go search for it, try to find a match. And AI should be able to do all of that for you. Should be matching, bringing the best candidates, who's engaging right now, who's the most active on LinkedIn, you name it, forward to you so you can see who you're trying to reach out to as the right person. And then the last thing it can help with is upskilling. We know in recruiting that attrition's a big piece, right? And you're from 20 to 40%, depending where it is. So ability to use AI to upskill. And what I mean by that is both with retention of existing recruiters, having more senior recruiters being able to share their knowledge base, right? Like they're senior, they're good, they know it because they've done it. Well, how do you get a new recruiter to be able to get at their same level? And that comes through ability to train them faster. And that's where AI can really help, right? You have pre-recorded demos, calls. They can call against those different ones to learn their skills. They can practice it. Script adherence. Are they doing all of that? Are they on brand with what you want your company to be saying and offering to people? So that's how you get a junior recruiter up to speed a lot faster. And that's going to help with retention, right? Attrition happens because of a lack of skills, tools, you name it. And that's where AI can really help step in and help make those both junior recruiters feel more seasoned and skilled without having to have a boss sit next to them all the time and listening to them. And that's how you can make your senior recruiters feel more appreciated, right? You're giving them more tools to be more efficient. Maybe that's time back in their day. Maybe it's more productivity so they can make more money. And that's where AI can really step in and help a lot of those.
So you've seen a lot of these staffing leaders, implement AI in the outreach and in the sourcing, screening, all of these things, communication, obviously. What is the most expensive mistake that you see firms make when they are implementing these communication or AI tools?
Yeah. So taking a step back for a lot of these companies right now, I think we heard Dirk speak earlier. He said 46% have not even engaged with using an AI tool. I think what's the most challenging with that, most expensive mistake is it's confusing, right? There's a ton of tools that are out there. It's confusing, it's overwhelming, and honestly, it's greatly under adopted. A lot of people buy it and they're using a fraction of what it can actually do within their organization. So most expensive mistake is they're buying a single point solution because they talked to somebody or one person said to buy it and it doesn't speak with the rest of their tech stack. And then they don't properly adopt it. So it's like, what did you buy it? I always talk about like multiple life cycles when you're looking at any technology, right? It's not just your salesperson's journey when they're using it. It's like, how does it affect your salesperson? How does it affect your recruiter? How does it affect your candidate's journey from beginning to end? And how does it affect your client's journey from beginning to end? So when you're looking at a tech stack, right, you should look at it from those four perspectives, in my opinion, right? And so it's four different journeys you're looking at of how you should be buying a solution. And you want it to touch as many one of those. If it's only touching your recruiters, right? You're buying a very single-threaded solution. And is that really going to help your organization? Maybe it will, but then you're going to have to buy something else for your sales team. And then that same thing, you may have to go buy something different. And in reality, there's a solution that could help with all of those, right? And so look at something that's very encompassing, or if it is a single-threaded, because it's the best at what it does for salespeople, does it work with other solutions that help with the recruiter journey, the candidate journey, the customer journey? And so that then comes back to your tech stack. How well integrated is into your tech stack? And does it play well with others? That's the kind of think of like, right? Kids in a sandbox. Does it play well with others or is it throwing sand? And throwing sand could be something from perspective of just like hitting your APIs too much, slowing down your system. It doesn't always have to be like, does it integrate and do they work well together? It can be, is it just more challenging and overwhelming or take up too much of your team's time when they're using it?
What are some questions that people should ask when they're vetting vendors to ensure that it is going to play well with others?
I mean, simple one is like, are you certified with this partner? Okay, like, Avionté has a partner program. You have to be Avionté certified to be in there. So you have a lot of these new ones that are coming up. They're great technology. They found a single solution they're fixing, but they're not even certified. Like how many customers? And that happens. I've been in startup space, right? I've been that new one into the space. And it's important for those customers, like in those vendors to go really spend the time to do that. Are they certified? What kind of integration do they do? What depth of integration do they have? How well do they work with the team? And who are other partners they worked with? So it's not just who other clients that can be references, but who are other partners they work well with. And so you go ask other vendors, hey, what do you think of them? I get people asking me that all the time. Clients come to me, hey, I'm looking at this tool. I'm looking at, what do you think of it? Do you have other customers that are using it? Go ask your network, right? Your network's everything, and use that for not just trying to find new jobs, use it a lot for your tech stack as well.
So I know that you talked a little bit about, recruiters kind of spamming people. What else are staffing firms getting wrong about how they're reaching out to candidates that they genuinely don't even realize that it's for?
It's funny. We actually spoke with a guy today. I won't say staff members, with a healthcare company, about $100 million in revenue, came to our booth, and his exact words were, man, we have bought so many different solutions. We've tried to engage with so much. It's working really well. We're growing like crazy. But right now, for example, we're texting from 4 different platforms. So they're using 4 completely different platforms, none of which talk to each other than they're doing a write back to Avionté. So they're all logging a note back to Avionté, thankfully, but they're texting. One candidate could get a text from 4 different solutions or 4 different phone numbers throughout that process. So it's super disjointed. So again, they didn't look at all those journeys. They just looked at an end result. Well, if I go use this AI agent tool, it's going to do this for me. If I go use automated based off status, it's going to do this for me. If I use this outreach tool, try to drive people to my website, it's going to do this. But that same person got texted from 4 numbers. That's going to be so confusing for you in the end. Which one's the one you're supposed to text back? Hey, you want to take that job? Which are you texting back the direct line of the recruiter? Are you texting back the automated one? Are you texting back the engagement tool that first reached out to you? The onboarding tool that texted you from a different number? Like, that's crazy, right? And so it's super disjointed. And what's crazy, he said it's still even working. They've just been like, hey, sorry, you're going to get a lot of outreach from different numbers. Like, whoa, take a step back. How can we centralize that, right? Like, it comes back to single threaded. Because to me, if I got a text from another one, I'm like, wait, I was just talking to Hilary over here. Why should she text me for a new number? Is this spam? Is that link they just sent me someone trying to steal my information? It can be very disjointed.
Absolutely. So talking about, the show, what are you most excited about in the conversations there?
Yeah. So it was interesting. When I sat in earlier on Dirk's presentation, he saw 5 trends. It's interesting. I think they all actually tie back together. One, there's trend 1 is uncertainty in the tailwind, like what's happening in the industry, right? We're seeing the first stabilization we've seen since probably 22, right? Which is scary. And for all of us, it's been this up and down. Is this going to stay? Is it going to be quarter over quarter? We're seeing across most industries, stabilization and growth. So that's a huge one. The next trend is labor squeeze. We all know that's still a big gap, right? Labor squeeze is happening. They called it the great stay for a bit. Now you're starting to get people to move, but it takes like the right outreach. The right trend with that is like just really trying to get a good focus on what you're bringing to that candidate. Like, what are you offering to them? Like, how are you reaching out to them? Again, comes at the very beginning. Are you asking the right questions to them? And are you communicating on their channels? Texting them versus calling, you name it. Trend 3, a big one he talked about was talent expectations have changed. Again, that's communication, speed of communication, pay expectation. That's a real conversation you have to have a lot of people. I've had to have as I've hired, like, hey, I know you made this in 22. May not be what you're going to make now. So, but there's a path to it. And then 4 is obviously AI is no longer optional, like we talked about a lot here. And so I think one of those trends is you're going to see it's going to take away the mundane, but a lot of people still haven't even adopted it. So those ones, I think your guys' report talks about the people that are growing the fastest right now, the ones that are the most adopted across their organization. No surprise. And then the big one is skills are new credentials. I thought that was a really interesting one. The college degree doesn't mean much anymore. With the trend, you can have a 20-year-old who is killer at using Claude and can probably be super impactful to your business. And so how can you do that? And so like, when you think about that, all this points back to the one thing we talked about earlier, which is data hygiene, data insurance within your organization, right? So if all this all back in there, it's going to help you be successful. So we're hearing a lot of that. I'll be interested to see how this continues across the different presentations. Like, what are people the most excited about? Which one of these trends continue to see the most impact within their businesses? And I think it's going to boil back to the same thing as adoption. Whoever adopts the most, like, really takes the risks right now. And that's what, in reality, we should have been doing 6 months ago if the industry is already on the up, because you're going to be super focused on the growth of your business. So how can you have someone in your business take a step back and focus on, okay, what are 10, 20% changes we can make to organization? So we don't just have to hire to catch this growth. How can we be more efficient, more profitable? And I think it was Brett in one of the first panels talked about that. His focus on his wasn't necessarily growth, it's profitability. Took it from 22% gross margins to 46% gross margins within a year of adopting it. So maybe it's not your growth. Who cares? Stay at 30 million in revenue, but increase your gross margins by 20%, 20 points. What's that do for your bottom line?
Right. A year from now, what will staffing firms be doing differently than they are today?
I think we're going to continue to see the industry evolve really quickly, right? This uptick in the industry is going to cause a growth spurt again, but it's actually going to cause a growth spurt, and it's going to cause a separation of companies, those who adopted and those who didn't. And you're going to see the ones fall behind that didn't. And some of those might be the big traditional ones. Everybody thinks, oh, well, the Robert Half's of the world, they're going to be here forever. What if they're not? What if they're too slow to adopt? So that's where like the more nimble, smaller companies, mid-sized companies could see growth. Same time, those smaller, mid-sized companies, well, I have this niche market. I've always done this. It's working. It may not. So I think what we're going to see now is a consolidation of the industry still again. While we'll see a good growth here overall within the numbers, I think we're going to see less staffing firms. And some of those could be the big ones, right? There's a huge shift in IT, for example, to move from IT staffing to IT consulting, where you bring on their years, you're doing big contracts. We're seeing IT seeing a big hit. It's a change, right? Because you're not contracting out as much development now. More it's on security compliance. So can they make a shift fast enough there using AI? How can they change those roles? They're going to find the right candidates for that because they weren't focused on that in the past. And so again, that comes back to the companies that adopted solutions that can help them be dynamic and shift quickly with the market as it needs to. They're going to make it. The ones that do what they've always done, they may not make it.
I agree. It's just an interesting time that I feel like for the first time, the smallest, most agile teams have just a big advantage as the people with all of the time, money, and resources.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's a question about like, what's your willingness to change?
Right.
Right. And it's okay to not, but don't expect the same results you saw in other upticks within staffing. You may not experience that because there's other people that are more willing to change. You might get 5% growth when the industry grows 20. If you're okay with that because it's a lifestyle business for you, great. But it depends where you want, what you're trying to do with your organization. Do you want to be on the front of that wave, right? Early adopter, fast grower? Do you want to be at 40% when the industry grows 20? That's where you're going to have to take risks and move quickly. And it's okay to take a risk if you can learn from it.
Awesome insights. Thank you so much, Eric, for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Hilary.